looking very healthy and very well, and I'm happy you're with us today.
I'm lucky to be with you today.
Yeah, you
it's
really...
like a 50-50 shot at survival there, you know?
Just moments ago, investigators boarded Sig Hansen's legendary vessel, the Northwestern, and what they uncovered inside has stunned fans across the world. Sig, known from Deadliest Catch as the fearless captain who's survived hurricanes, heart attacks, and high sea disasters, now finds himself at the center of a storm no man could prepare for. Dock workers say officials arrived unexpectedly, sealing off the pier before anyone could film. Sources claim what they pulled from the lower decks left even the most hardened officers pale and speechless. Sig was reportedly seen arguing with investigators, his voice breaking as he demanded answers. For a man who's spent his life conquering the sea, this moment changed everything. Stay tuned, because what they found inside his boat will make you question everything you thought you knew about him. It began as just another gray morning in Dutch Harbor. The wind howled across the icy docks, and the Northwestern, Sig Hansen's pride and livelihood, sat moored in eerie stillness after another brutal crab season. The crew had just finished unloading their final catch when something strange happened. A maintenance worker noticed a foul metallic smell drifting from the lower hull. It wasn't the typical stench of dead crab or diesel. It was sharper, almost chemical. At first, no one paid much attention. Boats like Sig's had seen it all: broken pipes, spoiled bait, leaking fuel. But the smell only grew stronger by the hour. When dock inspectors approached to run a quick safety check, Sig himself met them at the gangway, his expression tight and unwelcoming. Witnesses recall him muttering that it wasn't a good time. But protocol demanded the inspection continue. The moment they stepped below deck, everything changed. The crew that followed behind said the temperature dropped instantly. The air grew thick, humid, and foul, like something rotting in a sealed chamber. A heavy silence fell. Even the usual hum of the boat's engines seemed to fade. Then one of the inspectors called out, "Captain, you might want to see this." Sig's boots clanged against the metal floor as he descended, flashlight in hand. What the beam revealed sent chills down his spine. A sealed hatch, bolted shut from the outside, and marked with fresh welding lines. It hadn't been there the last time he checked. He asked his engineer if anyone had sealed that compartment recently, but the man shook his head. No one knew who had touched it, or why. Sig's face turned pale. Without another word, he ordered everyone to step back. When the first bolt cracked open, a gust of fetid air rushed out, almost knocking the inspector over. "That's not fuel," one of them said. The smell was too foreign, too foul. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Sig, who had survived the worst of the Bering Sea, now stood frozen in disbelief on his own deck. Months before the shocking discovery, the Northwestern had endured one of the most brutal seasons in recent memory. Waves as high as buildings smashed against the hull, and the icy winds tore through the deck like knives. Sig Hansen, pushing his aging body past every limit, refused to quit despite his doctor's warnings after another mild heart attack. Cameras from Deadliest Catch only captured fragments of what really happened that season, but the crew remembers every second of it. The weather was unnatural, storms forming too fast, magnetic instruments glitching, and GPS readings flickering between impossible coordinates. Even veteran deckhands admitted something about that trip felt cursed. One night, the crew spotted something strange in the fog. A faint glow moving under the water alongside the boat, pacing them for miles. They assumed it was a reflection or an illusion from exhaustion, but the next morning, they found the net cables tangled around an unknown object, smooth, metallic, and freezing cold to the touch. Sig ordered it cut loose, saying it wasn't worth the risk. But the greenhorn on night duty swore he saw Sig secretly retrieve a small piece of it, slipping it into a crate before sunrise. No one questioned him. The sea had a way of keeping its secrets, and Sig was known for protecting his own. Later in the season, strange mechanical failures began. Lights flickering, engines sputtering, and sonar readings that made no sense. The crew blamed bad wiring or interference from the storm, but the chief engineer insisted something else was draining power, something not on their logs. As tension mounted, one deckhand claimed he heard tapping sounds beneath the storage floor at night, like something moving inside the hull. Sig brushed it off as paranoia, though his eyes betrayed unease. In interviews later that year, he mentioned the season had cost him more than sleep, a comment fans dismissed as exhaustion. But those close to him noticed how he avoided questions about the Aleutian crossing. That was the voyage where everything began to change. The trip that would later connect to the sealed hatch no one could explain. And if the rumors are true, what Sig brought back from that cursed voyage may never have belonged to this world at all. When the final bolt on the sealed hatch snapped loose, a deep metallic echo rolled through the Northwestern like thunder. The inspectors pulled the hatch open slowly, the hinges grinding with a shriek that made everyone step back. A rush of foul air burst upward, dense and cold, as if the ocean itself had been trapped inside. Flashlights cut through the darkness, and what they revealed stopped everyone in their tracks. The compartment was lined with moisture, condensation dripping from the steel walls like sweat. Stacked inside were 3 large containers wrapped in heavy tarps, secured with industrial-grade chains. None of them were on the ship's manifest. The labels had been stripped off, leaving only faint markings that looked more like symbols than letters. "What the hell is this?" one officer muttered, his voice trembling. Sig didn't answer. He just stood there, frozen, gripping the rail until his knuckles turned white. When they unwrapped the first tarp, what lay inside didn't make sense. The container held fragments of metal, burnt, warped, and fused with what appeared to be organic tissue. One inspector thought it might be the remnants of a deep-sea sub or drone, but the texture was wrong. Another officer leaned closer and whispered, "This isn't standard salvage." Inside the second crate were smaller sealed jars filled with a thick black substance that shimmered under the flashlight beam, almost alive. Sig finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "I told you not to open it." That's when the officers noticed a small, water-damaged notebook wedged between the chains, a logbook with Sig's initials carved into the corner. One of them flipped it open, revealing smudged pages filled with cramped handwriting. The first legible line read, "Do not let them find this." The air grew colder. One of the crew crossed himself quietly. Without warning, the Coast Guard officers ordered the area sealed off, citing federal jurisdiction. Reporters at the dock were pushed back as black vehicles arrived within the hour. Whatever had been found wasn't meant for the public eye. Witnesses later said Sig stood silently on the deck as they carried the containers away, his face drained of color, whispering something no one could quite hear. But one phrase stood out to a nearby crewman who later spoke off-record. "I thought we left it out there." Hours after the Northwestern was sealed off, someone leaked fragments of Sig Hansen's water-damaged logbook online, and what it contained sent shockwaves through the fishing community. The handwriting was unmistakably Sig's. Rough, cramped, written in haste between coordinates and catch totals. The first few pages seemed ordinary, recording crab hauls, crew rotations, and weather notes. But further in, the tone shifted. Sig began referencing unidentified cargo, and government coordinates, followed by a chilling phrase. They told us to keep it sealed. No questions asked. Another entry from that same week read, "Whatever's inside, it hums at night." Crew members later confirmed that the boat had been assigned an unusual route that season, steering them hundreds of miles off typical crab grounds into restricted waters near the Aleutian Trench. When Discovery producers asked Sig about it, he dismissed it as a navigational error. But the log suggests otherwise. On one page, partially burned, Sig scrawled a sentence that would fuel months of speculation. "It isn't metal. It's growing." The writing beneath those words had been deliberately smeared, as if wiped clean before the ink dried. Some believe Sig realized too late that the thing they pulled aboard wasn't a machine at all, but something alive. The most disturbing entry came days later. "Ciao, it gets out, we're all done." Maritime experts who reviewed the notes confirmed that some coordinates in the journal point to a deep trench known for unusual electromagnetic activity, an area where military sonar has repeatedly failed. That alone led conspiracy theorists to claim the Northwestern had stumbled upon something the U.S. Navy wanted kept secret. For years, fans had seen Sig as a hardened, no-nonsense captain. But now they saw a man wrestling with fear, secrecy, and something beyond his control. The leaked logs were quickly scrubbed from major sites, and users who shared them reported sudden account suspensions. But the pages had already spread across private groups and offshore forums, igniting one question that no one could answer. What exactly did Sig bring back from the sea that night? And why did he risk everything to hide it? After the leaks hit the internet, the once tight-knit crew of the Northwestern began to unravel. Some swore the logbook was fake. Others claimed they'd seen the sealed containers with their own eyes. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into shouting matches. Veteran deckhands, who had fished beside Sig for decades, started questioning his judgment. "He kept us in the dark," one crewman reportedly told a friend. "If we were hauling something dangerous, we had a right to know." The tension exploded when a former engineer came forward, claiming that he'd warned Sig months earlier about strange energy readings coming from the lower deck. Sig allegedly dismissed him, saying it was interference from the radar, but the engineer insisted the readings pulsed like a heartbeat. Word of that claim spread fast. Suddenly, Sig's silence looked less like leadership and more like guilt. Even Edgar Hansen, Sig's brother and longtime right-hand man, broke his usual quiet. In a cryptic online post, he wrote, "There are things we were never supposed to see out there." Fans flooded the comments, demanding answers, but Edgar deleted the post within minutes. Crew members began quitting one by one. Some said they couldn't sleep after what happened, haunted by nightmares of the smell, the sound, the feeling that something on the boat was still moving beneath them. Others accused Sig of protecting Discovery Channel's reputation by keeping the truth buried. Those still loyal to him defended the captain, claiming he was only following orders handed down from people above his pay grade. But when reporters pressed for clarification, those same defenders went silent. Rumors swirled that federal agents had already interviewed several crewmen under non-disclosure agreements. Others claimed the Coast Guard had confiscated the ship's hard drives, including surveillance footage from the deck. Sig himself had vanished from public view, turning down interviews and canceling appearances. For a man who had stared death in the face 100 times, his sudden withdrawal spoke volumes. The crew of the Northwestern, once bound by courage and trust, had become fractured, suspicious, and afraid. And the deeper the investigation went, the more it seemed that none of them truly understood what they had been carrying across those frozen waves. Not long after the crew's infighting reached a breaking point, Dutch Harbor fell under an eerie quiet. locals noticed unfamiliar ships docking at night and unmarked vans arriving near the restricted pier where the Northwestern was held. The U.S. Coast Guard publicly claimed the vessel was undergoing routine environmental inspection, but residents knew better. Fishermen whispered about men in black tactical gear boarding the boat under floodlights, carrying equipment marked with radiation symbols. Within 48 hours, the entire dock was cordoned off, guarded by federal personnel who refused to answer questions. Discovery Channel's production crew was reportedly denied access, their cameras confiscated and footage sealed. One producer leaked that officials cited national security grounds when ordering them to hand over every tape filmed during the final season. What could a fishing vessel possibly carry that warranted federal secrecy? According to an anonymous insider, the sealed containers were transferred onto a military transport ship bound for an undisclosed facility. The cargo was listed under a classification code, typically used for biohazard or experimental material. Around that same time, data from marine tracking sites showed the Northwestern's identification beacon suddenly deactivated, its signal wiped from maritime logs. That only deepened the mystery. When reporters pressed for answers, the Coast Guard spokesperson issued a short, emotionless statement. No threat to the public has been identified. But that did little to calm fears. Online, theories exploded. Some claimed Sig had been forced to participate in a secret recovery mission. Others believed he had unknowingly hauled wreckage from a classified naval crash. A few went further, suggesting the black substance mentioned in his logbook could have come from something non-terrestrial. Meanwhile, crew members were subpoenaed for questioning. Some emerged pale and shaken, refusing to speak a word afterward. Others seemed to vanish altogether, relocating without notice. For weeks, the pier remained under guard, with locals saying they heard low mechanical hums coming from inside the ship at night, as if something deep within the hull was still active. Whatever the truth was, one fact became clear. Sig Hansen's boat had stopped being just a crab vessel. It had become evidence in something much larger, something the government desperately wanted to control. Days turned into weeks, and as speculation raged across social media, Sig Hansen remained silent. His absence only fueled the fire, until one evening, a local Seattle journalist released an unlisted video interview that changed everything. The footage showed Sig sitting aboard a smaller vessel, his face drawn and his hands trembling. The once confident captain looked like a man carrying a secret too heavy to bear. He started slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "They told me it was equipment, spare parts for a research project. That's all I knew." The interviewer pressed him to explain who they were, but Sig shook his head. "Doesn't matter now. What matters is, it wasn't what they said it was." He paused, staring off toward the dark water behind him. "It shouldn't have been brought up from the ocean floor." His words sent chills through the millions who would later watch the clip. The interviewer asked what was inside the sealed containers. Sig hesitated, then muttered, "Something that wasn't supposed to be alive." The silence that followed was unbearable. For the first time, the veteran fisherman who had survived everything the sea could throw at him looked utterly terrified. "You don't understand," he continued. "We thought it was just wreckage, but it moved. It made a sound." His hands clenched around the edge of the table. "We sealed it. We thought that would stop it." The journalist asked what it was, but Sig refused to elaborate. "I can't say more. They warned me." He stood, ending the interview abruptly, but before leaving, he looked straight into the camera and said, "Tell people not to go near those waters again. Whatever we pulled up, it's still out there." Within hours, the video vanished from every platform. Accounts that re-uploaded it were hit with copyright strikes from unknown claimants. Yet fragments continued to circulate, fueling hysteria. Was it an ancient organism, a government experiment, or something unexplainable from the depths of the Aleutian Trench? For those who'd followed Sig's career for decades, his fear was unmistakable. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was the sound of a man haunted by what he'd brought to the surface, a man who understood that the sea had taken its revenge. Weeks after Sig Hansen's haunting confession, the Northwestern remained under heavy guard at a classified facility along the Washington coast. The once proud fishing vessel was now wrapped in tarps, stripped of its markings, and surrounded by men in hazmat suits. According to insiders, the containers removed from the ship had been transported to a research site operated jointly by NOAA and the Department of Defense. Every document related to the discovery was stamped top secret. Then, without warning, the government announced that the Northwestern was being decommissioned for safety reasons. Fans of Deadliest Catch were heartbroken. Sig's life's work, the boat that defined his legacy, was gone. But that wasn't the end of it. Two scientists who allegedly worked on analyzing the recovered materials later leaked anonymous details to a maritime journal. Their claims were chilling. They described a metallic substance that reacted to electrical signals like a living organism and produced a faint rhythmic vibration similar to a pulse. Microscopic analysis revealed structures resembling both mechanical fibers and organic cells. "It's neither machine nor life form as we know it," one whistleblower wrote. "It's something in between." Days after the publication, the article vanished, and the journal's website went offline. Meanwhile, Sig's health declined rapidly. He was hospitalized twice for stress and heart complications. Close friends said he hardly spoke, often staring out at the sea for hours. "He's not the same man," one relative admitted. "He's afraid of the ocean now." Discovery Channel executives quietly scrubbed episodes, referencing the final voyage from reruns and streaming platforms. Officially, the show's archives list that season as lost footage. Online communities obsessed over every frame, convinced they could spot signs of what the crew had brought aboard. A flicker of movement in the background, a shadow under the waves, a metallic glint in the crab pots. Then, months later, an anonymous video surfaced showing a sonar scan of the Aleutian Trench, the same coordinates from Sig's logbook. The scan revealed something massive lying on the seafloor, stretching for hundreds of feet, pulsing faintly as if alive. Experts tried to dismiss it as sonar error, but the resemblance to what Sig described was undeniable. Since then, fishermen in the area have reported strange lights beneath their boats and sudden magnetic disruptions knocking out their radios. Some refuse to fish those waters ever again. As for Sig Hansen, he remains largely reclusive, occasionally spotted near his home in Seattle, always alone, always looking toward the horizon. When asked recently whether he'd ever return to sea, he simply replied, "The ocean showed me something I'll never unsee." No one knows if the truth about what they found aboard the Northwestern will ever be made public. But one thing is certain: the sea keeps its secrets, and sometimes those secrets fight to come back.